Hello and welcome. My name is Christopher Dring and I run gamesindustry.biz, which is the world's most popular, I hope, video games industry website. One of the things we do at Games Industry is an awards event called the Best Places to Work Awards. We've been running it in the UK for about 4 years, and actually this year we're going to be taking it to the US and Canada. Then these awards are actually really hard to win. We do ask the companies to tell us about what they do for their employees and then survey their staff to see if it's a great place or not. That surveying the staff is the most important bit, and it's really hard to get a high score. But if you do get one, you are named one of the best places to work in the UK video games industry. We ran our UK event in September last year, and a large number of the winners were based in Leamington Spa. Coincidence? Let's find out. We have a panel here comprised of some of those big winners, including Ed from Lab 42, Harinder from Sumo Leamington, Nina from Electric Square, and Tracy from Sega. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you very much.
I like to start with intros. So can we start with each of you saying who you are and what your company is all about? Let's start alphabetically. Ed, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Ed Blinko. I'm studio director at Lab 42. We're a small-ish now, I guess, video games developer in Leamington Spa. We got acquired last year by Sumo Digital.
And my alphabet's terrible. Harinder?
Hi, I'm Harinder Sangha. I'm the operations director at Sumo Leamington. We started our studio 2 years ago, next month actually, and basically starting off with just bringing mobile and games as a service to the huge Sumo Digital group of companies.
Brilliant. And Nina?
Yep, hello, I'm Nina. I'm the HR manager for Electric Square. We've got studios in Leamington, Brighton, and also more recently Singapore. And we have been running about 5 years now. So yeah.
5 years, only feels like yesterday.
No.
And finally, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Clark. I'm head of people operations at Sega Hardlight. So we're a mobile free-to-play smallish studio in Leamington, and we fall under the Sega Europe umbrella with 5 other studios.
Now, I love it when a panel title helps me with the question. So I'm going to ask that one right from the start. How come there are so many great video games employers in Leamington Spa? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in straight away. Do you know what? I think it's well, one, Leamington is a really nice place to live in the first place, so it does attract generally nice people. It's one of the happiest places in the UK to live. That's got to be one of the nicest places to work as well, right? So I think a lot of people that certainly I know that are running these studios, I think they've also been places where it's not so great. We've got a better outlook of the things that we would really want our studios to be. There's lots of competition. There's no doubt about it. Look, as we can see from this panel, there's lots of competition. So we do need to go that extra mile to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
You go, Nina.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. And, from my perspective, Leamington's like a regional games hub in the UK and has a real heritage of producing really amazing game studios. So, with it being a small town, a close-knit community, people are aware of the competitiveness, and that really does drive, it forward. And it does become very competitive, but in a very healthy way. And I think, there is a lot of variety. There's, the small sort of indie startups, and you've got the medium to larger size studios. So there is something for everybody. So that attracts a lot of people to the area. And, and I think people know each other. They talk about, the perks, the benefits, the initiatives, and inevitably that rubs off on all the other studios and really does kind of just elevate a quality of life really for all working in the industry up there.
Yeah, I think people vote with their feet if they don't like where they are. And the thing in Leamington is you can walk 5 minutes down the road and bump into 15 other people that work in video games. And back to Harinder's point as well, is that it's a great place to be, whatever your age, really, Leamington. You can be really young, you can be quite old, you can be like me and fairly middle-aged, and it's got everything that you need. It's got good universities, good schools, good nightlife, good bars and restaurants and everything else. So people come to the area and they like it and they stay for a very long time.
I've got nothing left to say now because everyone said it.
It must be as well, because obviously it's a good hub for talent, right? Because and then that's the reason why it's attracting, like, you got Sega and Microsoft and Sumos and these huge video game companies are sort of coming here because, and is that because of the education in the area?
I think people look at the area and they see that if they don't like where they are, they can go somewhere else. If they are relocating into Leamington, they don't have to relocate again afterwards. It's not like they're going to I don't know, Cleethorpes, and they're going to one job in Cleethorpes, and that's the only games company that's there. When they come to Leamington, they can see that there are other options there as well. So I think that's a really big draw for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of, the industry's matured. Gone are the days where you can be in Cleethorpes really far out there, but, and actually it's okay because you're on your own and you can just, pack your bag and move to the next place. It's not like that. People have got families now, and moving your entire family for work is definitely not what people want to do. So I think that has a big effect. And going back to on the universities, we do want to take advantage of the fact that we've got great universities on our doorsteps. Having Warwick, Coventry, Birmingham, taking advantage of that. These people have moved to the area because of those universities, and it would be a shame that after getting that that prestige education that they're moving out the area, we want to make sure that they stay. So they've got so many options just on their doorstep.
That's interesting, because actually my brother has just taken a job at a studio based in Leamington. Obviously not moved yet because there's no need, but that's one of the things that appealed to him, was the idea that actually he could settle there because there are plenty of other jobs if he wanted to move around and can go to other studios. That's I didn't even consider that, and I actually have first-hand experience of that advantage. So it's interesting. Yeah. Well, let's start with, because the thing is, I'll be honest, you all won Best Places badges not because people liked the pump rooms or the statues. They voted you great for what you do. So let's start. Let's talk about that then. So what do you think it is about that's so important in order to keep your staff happy? I can ask that to each and everyone. I'll start with Tracy, seeing as she had to be last time.
Well, I think because we all strive to have the best people in our studios, we all learn from each other across the studios as well. We learn of things that work and that don't work, and everybody kind of knows everybody, and you share those best practice things at events and and things like that. I think for us at Hardlight, because we had quite a big change a couple of years back, we looked at moving forwards, what are the things that work, what are the things that don't work. We had our kind of our reporting line changes as well. So, I mean, for me personally, I'm a big believer in people. So if you haven't got the people in your studio, you're not going to have the games. You're not going to be making the money. You're not going to be able to do everything else. They are our biggest asset. So we looked at lots of different things of the way that we can include our teams into everything that we do. We have staff ambassadors. We have a suite of wellbeing support that we'd actually implemented before the pandemic. So we were in a pretty good place with that as well. We have that open door approach. So, it's a very honest, open studio. People come, they tell us what's bothering them. We look at if we can help and change things. We action everything that we possibly can, and we communicate. And I think that all of those things combined give us that day-to-day feeling of like we're all in this together. And I think that really comes across. I know lots of studios in the area have the same approach as well. So we've all learned from each other with it.
What about you, Nina? What's your secrets?
Yeah. Well, I think sort of part of our identity at Electric Square is about creating a culture where we not only hire sort of obviously talented people, but we're hiring people because they're interested in the same things that we're interested as a studio, and they're interested in things that we care about. So it's people that are passionate, really, and they want to drive forward the studio initiatives, whether it's whether it's to do with charity or community and social or environmental policies, not necessarily just about making the games. It's all the other things that make up who we are as a studio, and the culture, and the people kind of get together and can really drive those things forward.
Oh. Harinder, what about you?
So interesting, because so it's 2 years ago when we started Sumo Leamington. We really thought about what we wanted. I mean, myself and Chris, studio director, obviously we may have done this before. It was so I do describe this as it's when people that have started studios go back and say, God, if we could go back and do it again, what would we do differently? And that we are literally living and breathing our go back and do it again. So the things we thought about right from the start is who do we want to be and what do we want to concentrate on? So we started with our vision statement, and the Sumo Leamington vision statement is we make you look forward to tomorrow. And that's something that's really close to my heart, because it's not just about the kind of games that we want to make in our community of players, but it's about our people. We really want them to enjoy what we're doing. And we all have good days, we all have bad days, we all have project days where we wish that the project would just die, right? But ultimately it's about that next day. It's about making sure that as a team we're really looking forward to who we are and what we're doing. And we've put lots of initiatives in place. We listen a lot. We do a lot of feedback sessions that people know that there is that, that everybody's got a voice. It's about creating that space where, we talk about diversity, because diversity is, it's the solution to lots of things, in my opinion, and it's something that we do need to take seriously. And we do at Sumo Leamington. It's something we've put at the forefront of our minds. So, making sure that our teams are diverse, making sure that we look at that, and making sure that we create a space ultimately where people feel that they belong. And that's what I feel probably most proud of, actually, is that 2 years on, that people are saying, God, I feel like I belong here, because it's very clique free in that sense, because we all belong. Sounds corny, doesn't it? But we all belong together. It's quite special.
You mentioned the because we were going to come on to that later, but your Sumo Leamington did extremely well in the sort of diversity inclusivity element of the Best Places Awards. And it's actually when we judge those awards, very few companies do very well in it. Some people do all right, and the games industry, you can understand why it's the games industry the way it is. A lot of people look like me. So I mean, obviously we're not at the solution yet, but what have you been able to do to try and sort of foster that sort of inclusive element to your studio?
Yeah, I think it's where we started. We started with I always refer a middle-aged white man and a young brown female. So it's starting there from a leadership perspective. It's 50-50, and I think that ultimately sends a really positive message to everybody. And when we're talking to people, we are, they have the opportunity they speak to both of us as part of the recruitment process, right? And they can see that, the people, the panel that are in the interview process, they're diverse. One of the things, even from a junior perspective, we've got more female juniors than we have male, right? And I feel really proud of that. So we've kind of got the solution from the top. We've got, we're dressing it from the bottom. That bit in the middle, there is so much more to do. We know that there's so much more to do, and it's so difficult to get that right. But even so, our design team is 75% female. So it's just looking at what we're doing and actually making sure that across the board, we're making sure that there is, again, it's a place where people belong. So each of those teams, there's a voice for everyone, and making sure that they feel that way. So it feels like it doesn't matter whether you're male, female, what colour your skin is. It's that belonging that you ultimately need to create.
Well, I think we should come back to that, because I realise Ed hasn't told us his secrets. Ed, what do you do?
I'm not telling you because it's a secret. No, we treat everybody like an adult. When we first started the studio, we, as Harinder said, it's kind of, people have maybe not worked at the best places prior to this. So coming in and starting a studio where we treat everybody equally and everybody the same and like an adult, which sounds like that should just happen anyway, but it doesn't always work out that way. Letting everybody feed into those really big decisions that we're going to make as a studio and try and help everybody come together so that we're acting as a team rather than acting as 2 or 3 individuals at the top that just want to go away and do what's best for them rather than what's best for everybody. You know, we've always done things like close the studio really early. You know, we don't let people work late. We don't do crunch. We very, 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 very rarely do any kind of overtime or anything else. And it's those things, I think, that people saw in us and went, actually, you know, you're going to treat me like I want to be treated when I'm talking to people and how we interact with you. So yeah, it's somewhere that we would go and or I would go and work. And that was always the outset for it, is where would I want to work, and we'll try and create that, really.
Ed, how do you not crunch? I know it sounds like, I know none of the winners of the Best Place to Work Awards crunch, but I'm interested to know. But lots of people. It's a deadline-based industry. These things happen, but it happens a lot. So how do you avoid it?
It's a lot to do with how you plan stuff. So planning is pretty much everything. Sometimes you get it completely wrong, and you've got to go back and replan and rethink about how you're going to attack something. But for the most part, it's being sensible and not saying we're going to get something out in December when everybody knows, you know, the entire and that's again going back and talking to the entire team. You know, let's all come together and figure out if this is doable by December, and if it's not, then we'll come back to whoever the client is, whether it's ourselves or whether it's a publisher or another developer, and say, this is the timeline, this is when we're going to get the game. So, and sometimes you win the work on that, and sometimes you don't. So,
is that the solution? I did have a question later on. I was asked about work-life balance, but I guess this ties into all of that. How does anyone else have anything to sort of how that you achieve that in a deadline-based business like video games?
It is really difficult. I think the biggest problem we've got is the fact that, you know, we employ lots of people to come to work every day to conduct their hobby, and they love doing this. So part of our job as leaders is being able to say at a certain time, you know, step away from the keyboard. And it is particularly difficult under these circumstances to say that, because it's really easy for that whole home life, having that divide from there, and actually ultimately people walking away from their machine, because that's what they're doing pretty much all the time. So, you know, it's our job for them to see us not doing it as well, right? You know, so that they know that it's not the norm, it's not expected, and actually making sure that we're checking in every often and saying, you know, what are you doing in your own time, and actually make sure you've got a life outside work. It's really important.
Nina, do you have any solutions? What do you do at Electric Square?
Well, I think, you know, it is obviously comes down to the planning and the production and how the projects are run. And if you've got a good team, then you're on to a good start. But, you know, we do have a duty of care to look after our crew. And if they are working abnormal hours and crunching, that is just you're going against the grain, because you'll end up with burnout, and you'll actually end up doing a lot more in the long run. So really it's just monitoring, and it's difficult. You know, we're all at home at the moment, so it's even more so important trying to keep on top of that, so people aren't still at their computers at whatever time at night. You know, when you're in the studio, you have a little bit more visibility over that. So it is just taking that extra care, that extra planning, and just having those communications and making sure you are targeting as you should be.
And Tracy?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything the guys have said. I mean, for us, it is from the planning side of it, and being able to push back and say, this isn't achievable. We can't do that in this time. We don't have the resource and the time to produce this. And, you know, a bit like what H said, it's taking that from the top, and actually not just saying you don't need to be at your computer, you don't need to be answering emails at this time, but, you know, don't send that email at 10 o'clock at night, so that when someone comes in the next morning and they see that and they think, oh God, I should have answered that last night or something. It's those sorts of things that really embed with people. So yeah, I totally agree with everything that the guys have said.
What you said there about, so a bit of a personal anecdote. I used to run I'm a bit of a data nerd. I love video game charts and the top 10s of that week and things like that. And during the and the cats come in, and during the on a Sunday night, that's when the charts come in. And because I'm really into it, I get the charts, I read them straight away, I start tweeting about them, I end up doing the story on a Sunday night. And then I took a holiday, And the journalist, one of my journalists, because when the charts came in, they did it on a Sunday night. But I only did it on a Sunday night because I like doing it. There was no need to do it on a Sunday. No one's reading it till Monday morning anyway. But it was just because I realized that I'd set a precedent. The team expect this is what needs to happen. I need to be working on a Sunday night, and it absolutely isn't. And it's now we don't allow that to happen. But you're talking about sort of from the top as well, Harinder, as well. We had there's that. You've got to set the right example. You can get a bit too carried away yourself. I got sidetracked there, but let's go back to the conversation we had with Harinder earlier about sort of diversity inclusion. It's such an important topic, and it isn't going to be a quick fix, but we are seeing some progress, and you all score very well in this area. But Tracy, can I start with you? I mean, what do you do to try and foster that sort of inclusive, diverse? How do you attract talent from different backgrounds? I mean, what do you do?
I mean, it starts right at that recruitment level where we run our job adverts and our communication around that through the software that our recruiter uses. It pulls out certain things that we shouldn't be using or we should be using, and gives us updates on how we can change things and stuff like that. And I feel this is my first role in this industry, so for me, I'm learning all the time with this sort of stuff, and I think Hardlight specifically, we're at the start of that D&I path, because it's always been a big topic in the studio, but it's like, what actually can we do? These easy choices, these easy things, starting at that recruitment level and running stuff through that software, that just starts us off on the right place. I mean, we are always, I'm a bit jealous of H's percentages, but we're, everyone wants to be up there with the right sort of percentage and, the right mix in the studio and stuff like that. But, I don't think it's something that anybody will ever be 100% at. You can always improve, you can always change things, you can always reevaluate where you are with things. I mean, I've just signed the studio up to the UK Raise the Game pledge as well, so that's where we're starting from. That's our framework. We have our inclusive behaviour framework coming in as well, so there's lots of things that are just starting off in the studio, but the proof's in the pudding with it, really. We've got to not just say we're doing this, we've got to show our staff and show the outside world we're putting our name on this is what we're doing. We, similar to H, we now have men and women on the leadership team, so it does make a difference when people are looking in on your studio.
Great. Ed, do you have, I mean, I guess it's a bit of a smaller team, but do you have any measures in place?
So we try and have done this for a number of years now, and now we're part of Sumo. Actually, it's made our lives easier. But to bring high potential people in from different backgrounds. So we ran a boot camp a couple of years ago for young adults that didn't really want to go to university but wanted to get into games. We hired somebody out of that boot camp. He's still with us now. He's been with us for about 3 or 4 years now. We've just taken on 2 people. One came out of the film industry. She was a graphics programmer for for films, and now she's coming over into the video games industry to learn more about real-time graphics and stuff like that. And then we've just hired another candidate, again, just before Christmas, and she'd been a traditional programmer at a UK studio, and has come over but had made bunches of her own games. So she'd made her own small indie games. We looked at that and said, be a great candidate to come over and actually help us at Lab 42. So we do look for people outside of the games industry quite a lot, and we do try and bring those people over because the skills are pretty interchangeable. There is some ramp up time and stuff like that, but for the most part, those people come in already with knowledge of project tracking software and fixing bugs and all that. They have the core skills. They just need the time within the games teams to figure out how to make video games per se, I guess. So
Nina, do you what do you do?
Yeah, well, at Electric Square, it's something that we're working on and always will be working on. We can always do better. I think we during the lockdown period we started up a D&I board, which there's been a group of us across the studio that have been meeting on a regular basis and looking at how what initiatives we can start and how we can try and make it a more diverse and inclusive environment to work in, not just now, but for the future. I think a lot of it, when we talk about it, we're trying to sort of make the changes right now, but this will not happen overnight. That you've got to sort of be in for the long game, really. So we do a lot in sort of the local communities, go to local schools, speaking to the young children, and making them and their parents aware that a career in the games industry is not just something fun. It's a real opportunity. So kind of getting young girls and boys involved in that, coming into the studio, seeing how we're doing different things. And the inclusivity is not just about gender and ethnicity. It's about different backgrounds and nationalities and personalities, and so forth. So it's kind of just really understanding our crew and how we can make everybody feel included within everyday life in the studio as well. But Electric Square, we've partnered with Bayman Games to build the Bayman Games mentorship program. And just generally just trying to support the next generation coming through. And we're also working with an external company to help do an audit on our recruitment processes, make them a more inclusive processes, make sure we're doing what we should be doing and doing it right.
And like what you said there, you're right. It's also about things like, the games industry can be quite middle class, in my experience as well. It's not all, it's not, gender and ethnicity is definitely a big part of it. But there are other things that, attracting people from different industries as well, with different voices. That's what it's all about, really. And making them, feel welcome. I lost my train of thought in a very important sentence. I do apologize. We do actually have a question from a job seeker. So if you're looking for a 3D modeler, there's somebody in the chat. You were talking about attracting talent from different backgrounds. I'm trying to get into the industry as a 3D modeler. However, all the roles I've seen posted have asked for previous experience. I had this question a few times before at other events. Does that not make it harder to sort of diversify? Who wants to go to that one?
Experience, it does. I think it's finding those gaps in for junior talent to come through, and sometimes it really depends on. I mean, for us as a studio, while we are hiring like an art director right now, we've got an open position for an art director and for a technical artist. They're very specialised parts of the industry. But we've been particularly bad. I mean, as Lab 42, not bad, but we haven't had the opportunity really to grow that art team of ours as much as we have the programming team. But that's something that we're trying to set right now. And the art director is someone that we're going to bring in to actually help us do that. And then that affords us to actually bring in those juniors and be able to mentor them through, because we can hire them, we can hire people and we can hire juniors, but if there's no one there to progress them through the company, it kind of stifles their creativity and it puts them into a bit of a corner, and that's not a good place for somebody to be as an employee either. They may have a job, but they're not actually being progressed, or they're not being they're not moving forward in their own careers either. And I think that's something that we're trying to address certainly at Lab 42 right now.
Certainly something that's a lot harder for the smaller businesses to achieve. Yeah, I think that's right. Well, I'll move on from the question. One of the things that you talked about, and I do like, Harinder, your mission statement of just trying to look forward to the future, looking forward to tomorrow. Right now, it's getting through the day that seems to be a bit of a challenge in the current COVID-19 pandemic situation. So let's talk about that, because the thing is, you all won. These awards took place during the pandemic when it started. That's when the judging process started, and you still won. You still had a happy workforce. So what do you do? What have been the biggest challenges that you've faced, and sort of how have you overcome them? Harinder, do you want to take that one if you've got an answer?
It's a funny one, really, because we have now recruited more people that we haven't met than we had in the team before. So, we've literally hired 30 people since we've been in lockdown. So, wow. Sumo Leamington's existence has been in lockdown, which is a bit crazy, really. So, it's it'll be interesting. And I suppose one of the things is a lot of people, they only know it as this, right? So that's one of the things, maybe advantage, disadvantage, I don't know. And we do talk about that culture that we've really tried to keep since we've been in lockdown, and keeping people engaged and doing, poker nights, or just make sure we have cups of teas, and speed dating. That was, the programmers loved it, right? Just things like that to keep people talking to each other, and just making sure that they you're creating friendship groups, because that is, that's a really important part of working with people, is those friendship groups. So we've really worked hard on that, but we haven't, it's something that we're going to have to keep working on, something we're going to have to keep considering. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of thing what we could just, it's a never-ending task, isn't it? Really, I think.
I've experienced that even when you think you've cracked it, something, my team are finding this third lockdown in the UK much harder than the previous two, and the solutions that we had before aren't working now, and it's it is a constant, as you say, constant evolving thing. Nina, do you do anything at Electric Square?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of challenges as well, mainly all around sort of connection. People were scared when they went into the lockdown. They didn't know how they were going to feel, and the first two lockdowns, as you said, definitely felt different to what's happening now. The way we've tried to overcome that is making sure every morning you're checking in with everybody, your producer, your lead. Just a quick hello is just all that it takes, even if it's just a message on Teams. Hi, how you doing? Is everything all right? Good day, etc. And that is something small like that really does just help. But really, the connection, we introduced like the random coffee meetups. So once a month, it's just probably similar to the speed dating thing, just 15-20 minutes, you're paired up with someone randomly, so not on your project, someone you may have never met before, because again, we've hired a lot of people in the lockdown period, and it's just up to you. You can talk about anything you want, it can be work related, but try and not encourage that. So and people really benefited from that. But just generally that whole connection, onboarding people remotely is really difficult. We're obviously doing our inductions online. We're making sure that everybody is paired up with a buddy. It's not an HR person, or it's not their lead. It's somebody else that they can talk to on a regular basis. We make sure we send out our new starter packs to everybody ready for their first day, so they've got a little bit of love from us, and just connection and events, loads of socials, loads of charity events to get people really engaged them, and all sorts of different events, kind of talking about the inclusivity side of things. You're not going to, you've got your different types of personalities, so D&D games are going to appeal more to somebody, whereas you might have a clay modelling night or a quiz night or whatever, loads and loads of different things. So just trying to be aware that everybody's different and everybody's unique, and dealing with this in different ways. So.
I don't even know, because gamesindustry.biz is an onboard the gamesindustry.biz is a remote team anyway, and so onboarding is, we're used to it doing this way, but obviously writing an article is completely different to making a video game multifaceted. I can't imagine how hard it has been to try and sort out that onboarding process, particularly, I've heard the stories a few times of companies that have doubled in size during the lockdown. I'm like, I don't know how you hire one person trying to get that to work. But
organized, very organized, especially when they're coming onto a larger project as well, but it's just opening a lot of people, being organized, and lots of check-ins, making sure they're okay.
Ed, what about you? Do you what have you been doing during the
much the same sort of stuff, really. So we also do a company-wide update once a month as well. So we'll do a Lab 42 update for everybody. We'll update everybody on every project that we've got going on in the studio as well, so that everybody, because when they're in the office, they would normally be talking to each other over a coffee or whatever, but being at home, you don't really get to speak to the people that you may be sat next to when you were in the office all that much, because you might not be on the same team. So all of our producers will do a quick run through of their projects every month. I'll do a quick bit on kind of what else is going on, and tell everybody that we still haven't got any plans to return back to the office at any time soon, because this is still going on, which is always an unfortunate one. You're right though on that. I mean, onboarding is critical, and you know, we've got several things that we do at Sumo now and Lab 42. You know, you make sure people got their kit, you know, a couple of days before they're going to start, that they're going to speak to everybody in the studio that they need to speak to, either on their first day or certainly within their first week, and regular check-ins and all that kind of stuff as well. Sumo have been amazing. Like they've sent out a bunch of care packages as well to our people. So recently we had a pancake day one as well. So there's a pancake flipping competition going on at this point in time. So, you know, with prizes and stuff, and we do a Lab 42 quiz and a couple of other bits and pieces as well. But yeah, it is quite difficult. And I think the most difficult part is that level of communication that was there when we were in the offices and isn't there now. We do stand-ups every day for all of our projects. And sometimes they're not quite enough. So sometimes we go over and above, and that stand-up will go on a bit longer than it really should, and people stay behind and chat about issues and problems that they've got on the projects. And sometimes those 10-minute chats turn into 30-minute chats. But we found that that's a really good way to deal with that loss of communication that has run away from us since we've not been in the office, really.
Oh, very good. Tracy, do you have a...
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pressures we found was those people that had dependents at home. So whether that was kids or you were caring for, your grandmother or something like that, and how, especially the kids when they're at home, how you can do your work while they're there in the background. And I think first lockdown, that was a real pressure for everybody. And we just wanted to take that pressure away. And we were like, if your kids need something, in the middle of a meeting, go and help them, go and sort it out. The biggest thing for us is that everybody that we employ come out of this pandemic with their relationship still intact, their family life still intact, and that's really important to us. And I do think that's really helped. And all we've asked is that people just put a little note on their Teams, just saying out at lunch or out walking the dog or having to do some homeschooling or whatever, just so that people aren't constantly messaging you on Teams and you're thinking, oh, I can hear it pinging and things like that. Like the other guys have said, I mean, the connection's been the biggest one. We're all doing similar things. I've literally in my body weight in pancakes at lunchtime today that were supplied by Hardlight. So it's those little things that just make your employees know that you're thinking about them. Everything is virtual at the moment, and I think that took a long time for people to get used to. People are getting sick of being online, and we were trying to arrange pub quizzes, and we'd have loads of people on one week, and then maybe the next it had kind of dipped a little bit because they'd been on loads of meetings. But I think now people realize that those little things are what keep you sort of engaged and motivated and feel connected. We also have like a virtual kitchen. So, you would go into the kitchen in the studio and have a cup of tea, and you talk about, I don't know, the thousands of bugs you've just fixed or something like that, and you'd get that recognition straight away from, oh, well done, it's a really good job, things like that. So we've set up a virtual kitchen that's open all day, and you can go in, you can start the meeting, have a cup of tea and have a chat with somebody. And I suppose a bit like H was saying with the speed dating, you don't know who's going to come in there at the same time, and that's been a really nice thing for people to still feel connected. And we also had an extra, we trained another person in mental health first aid as well, so that people knew that there was other people to go to, because that was quite a big thing for us last year. And we have a couple of outside counsellors, and that's really helped people, because they've just been struggling in areas, and they have that well-being and that support across the studio, which is it has really helped. But like the guys have said, I think there's always something that we're battling with. There's always something that we're trying to help and support with, and that is going to be for a long time yet.
Excellent, brilliant, great answers. We've got some. I was going to pick up on the everyone expanding and culture and stuff like that, but actually we've got a few questions from the audience, and I'd like to get to them. Although the two of them seem to be quite connected. So if about education. There is actually another event on later in the year called the Games Education Summit, which is really good for sort of these questions as well. But I'll put these questions to the panel. As someone who works in a university supporting employers to recruit students and graduates, I hear a lot of games recruiters state that entry-level candidates don't always have the right knowledge or experience. Is there a role that the games industry should be playing in changing this moving forward? This is a question specific to what we can do to try and make sure that people come through with the right skills, knowledge, or experience.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there because actually we've done as the Sumo Group have actually put a whole program in place for exactly that. So we have what's referred to as the Sumo Academy, right? And that's having people that have done their degrees, maybe done a computer science degree, or maybe not specifically a games course, but they're looking to get into the industry. So they can apply on the academy, and there's it's something we've only just introduced last year. So join the academy, and it gives them a really good groundings of what will then take them into that first, into being able to work on games. So they're not specifically working on any of our titles. It is just all about education. So it's giving them that extra that extra bit on the end that they really need. So we've thought a lot about that. And Jake, who's our director on that, he used to be at Sheffield Hallam. So he's got a lot of experience actually dealing with students.
Nina, isn't Electric Square doing something like that?
We do work experience. Mm-hmm. So we take on quite a few GCSE A-level work experience and college as well. So they don't obviously come in and work on the projects, but they spend some time with us, and we try and get them interested in a particular discipline where they can get that work couple of weeks or so work experience. So yeah, we've been doing that sort of from the get-go, but it's and it's kind of trying to like I sort of said previously, trying to get people to realize it is a real career, and it isn't just what parents might think, oh, you just want to play games, and that's what it's all about. So it's given those younger students, not necessarily the university age, to come in and really engage in that. I mean, we did have somebody working for us that had come and done some work experience at a studio previously to a colleague that was working there, and he's now absolutely flying, and just off the back of year 11 work experience, just fantastic. So yeah, just hope that we can inspire some people to really understand that it's a real career path.
And and that mentorship program that you do as well is sort of, I guess that's about
exactly. Yeah, it is. So you're going to be matched up with somebody of a particular discipline or particular role to try and understand and educate them on how they can get themselves into their specific area or that they will investigate. So and that's part of the BAME mentorship program. But that's just kind of starting to kick off at the moment. So waiting to get a bit more feedback on that and how and get more people signed up to it. But yeah, we've got quite a few people already on the go with that, so it's going really well.
Great. Well, Alex Darby wants to turn that last question around. And what do you think academia needs to do about the skills gap between graduates and what's needed for entry-level positions?
Good question, Alex.
Yeah, teamwork, I think, communication across different disciplines and stuff like that. BCU do that really well with Gamer Camp, but you don't tend to see that with traditional university degrees or anything like that. So that's a big part. You are going to be talking to people either more senior or more junior to yourself or at the same level across different disciplines, and being able to work as a team and reporting into people and making sure everyone is aware of what's going on and that you're checking your stuff off on Jira or ADO or whatever is really important, I think. And to me, that's the biggest thing that we get when we support Gamer Camp to a fairly large degree at Lab 42. We usually take some people in on a placement every year, and invariably end up hiring those people as well. And what we do find is they've had that cross-discipline communication, and they're much better prepared for the workplace than traditional university students.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point, because actually looking at that the Gamer Camp, what they're doing there is that whole point is they're creating that studio environment in that confinement, and that's really special. It's a really smart course that they've put on there. I know Alex was involved with that. Well done, Alex.
We're sort of running out of time, but apparently lots of people are watching, so I'm not going to unless you need to run away. I'm going to keep going for a little bit. There's nothing after us apparently. Benedict Derrick asks, it's about Ed's comment about finding people who have made their own small indie games. Would you recommend others doing this? Hang on, let me read the question. See how they made it, what they did, and what areas they could improve on. So do you recommend others doing this in terms of sort of working on their own titles before applying?
Whenever we interview any programmer, we'll often put them through a programming test at Lab 42, and I'm pretty sure, in fact I know that Sumo do that as well, and there are different programming tests all the way through the Sumo business. If some people don't fare well with a test, and if that happens but we really like that person, what we will often do is take a look at their previous work. So if they've got any personal work, we'll often take a look through that, either through the code base or look at what they've done, and we've hired a number of people that way as well. So if they've not either passed the test or they've not taken the test, but we've looked through their code and we think that they would be a good addition to the team. Now we have employed people that way before, several people actually. It's not one or two outliers. It's several people. So yes, is the answer I would always go with. Yeah.
Okay. Another question, sort of following up our COVID conversation. What, if anything, do you think will be the long-term implications for remote working after the pandemic? So will workplaces be more willing to allow work from home or flexible working hours? Is going back into the office now a thing of the past? How do you think, what do you think the long-term implications of this might be? That's for everybody, really. Tracy, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think we're definitely looking at that now and thinking, as it stands at the moment, like a hybrid of people that want to work at home and people that want to be in the studio, because, we have, and we all have this in our studios, a real mix of people. Some people really enjoy that social interaction while you're in the studio. And you also have those people that are not so social and they just want to be in their own sort of world and do their work. So we're definitely looking at, a hybrid version of back to the office, whatever that may look like. And let's be honest, anything can change this year. So, we're moving with the studios and, seeing what's kind of happening out there. But, I definitely think, and not just in our industry, I think, across the world, this has changed the way that people can work. I think one of our biggest concerns when we were sending people home was, geez, how are we going to get everybody set up? How are we going to get everybody working from home? And I think now it's, how are we going to get people back in the office? How are we now going to say this, this is back to how it, kind of was, a little bit different in places, but I think that'll be, a bigger challenge for the studio, but it's definitely opened our eyes to the flexible working and just seeing that people can actually do that, even when they've got kids and dogs and cats, coming in on your calls, it's accepted now, it's okay. And I do think that's going to change for the future.
Do you think, isn't it crazy that it's taken literally a pandemic for the games industry to realize I don't need to be sat next to somebody to work? And that's almost the reality for our industry, because we've been thriving, and it's great. And, we're in a really good place as an industry. One of the things that we have talked about at Sumo Leamington and from a Sumo group's perspective, it's always about, it's not a cookie cutter process. Each studio it's kind of down to them about what suits each individual teams, and we know our teams better than anybody else. But for Sumo Leamington, I think the one thing that we've talked about mainly is it's not a work from the office or work from the studio. It's thinking now it's about work from anywhere, and that anywhere is what suits that individual. We employ professionals, we employ really smart, brilliant people, and they're more than capable of making their own decisions about where they need to be. They know what their schedule is. If they need to be doing something collaboratively, can they do it on Teams, or do they need to be in a studio environment? If they're working on something that they focus, that's okay. I think what our job is, and this will be the big change for us, is about providing the right space that if they do need to collaborate all together, we need to be providing that space where people can collaborate together. For people that there anywhere is the studio, we need to provide that right environment and that right space in the studio. And certainly I think from our team, I think it'll be a bit of a mixture, like Tracy says. I think we don't see anybody coming back 5 days a week into the studio. I think it'll be about what suits their individuals, suits the individuals, and even that makes a big difference for you know, for parents, right? Because it does make that difference about making sure that I say this quite a lot in the film. I know we've done the right thing when we hear people say, "Oh, sorry about this, but I need to go pick my child up." But you shouldn't be sorry that you're a parent. That should come first. So that change of how people talk about that, I think, will be a big achievement, and that's what we can do with the changes in our environments.
And I actually think having that mix of people, some people that want to be in a studio 5 days a week, some people that want to be at home, you know, a few days, 5 days, I think that's a really good mix for studios as well, to actually see that you're more appreciative of people when they're taken away from you. You know, I took it for granted just having a cup of tea with somebody. You know, it's all well and good having a cup of tea with your husband every day, but you know, it's the same conversations every day. So I do think having that mix, you know, you might not have seen somebody for a couple of days that week. You've got, you know, all that enthusiasm and motivation to kind of get on together when you are in the studio. So I do think a good mix is a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Everything you said, exactly the same. It's going to be interesting to see what sort of percentage of people are going to be in and out at the time. Interesting to see how the actual sort of studio is going to look like. You know, what spaces do we provide those people that are working half and half, or whatever the pattern might be. But we're definitely going to be open to it. I think one of the challenges that we have is not knowing what projects we may have in the future and what requirements come from those clients in terms of will they ensure that we are working from the studio due to confidentiality and various other things. So whereas we might be saying, you know, you are able to work from home, but if we are then governed by those things, you know, that could be a tricky element for us to have to manage. But hopefully going forwards, if those clients traditionally had those requirements, maybe now with a new way of the world, you know, those requirements might be taken away. But it's something that, you know, we're thinking about and sort of wondering how that's going to be managed.
Yeah, dev kits are another kind of addition to that. Right now, the platform holders are pretty okay with people taking those dev kits home for the most part. Some kits you're not allowed to take out of offices still and stuff like that, but it depends what restrictions they put around those when we get back as well. I think from our side, it's embracing the inevitable for the most part, which is what it was when everybody went home as well. It's let's not worry about what's going to happen right now. Let's figure out how it works its way out over the course of time. And I think when we can start going back into the office, some people naturally will want to come in, some people won't. But then 3 months down the line, those roles may well have flipped, while those people at home see the people in the office and go, oh, they're having those conversations, or that's happening, or I want to see those people, you know. And I think inevitably things will put some rules in place, or we'll put some policies in place to get it done, and they'll change, or they'll evolve pretty quickly over the course of a few months of us all being back, or able to be back in an office anyway, I think.
Ed, you might have touched upon a potential future challenge when you've got some people from home and some people in the office, and sort of maintaining that communication is probably going to be quite difficult. But I think we could talk about this but this could have been an entire session in itself, couldn't it? We are well out of time. I've gone well over. And we did have some other questions to ask, but I think we best stop there. Thanks to all of our panelists. Ed, Harinder, Nina, and Tracy, thank you for spending a bit of extra time with us as well. Thank you to the organisers of the event. It's been really fantastic. And indeed, for all of you who are watching. The Best Place to Work Awards that we run will be back later in the year. So we'll see how well Leamington Spark does in that as well. So keep an eye out. Until then, stay safe and have a good evening.